You know who doesn't get enough credit? Emergency service dispatchers. These guys work around the clock to make sure we all get help we need in a crisis. The internet is littered with audio recordings of horrifying phone calls made to emergency services. People discovering a murder scene, a burning house, even reporting a crime happening at that very moment. The case we're looking at today was captured in full through a call to 911 when a young girl reported her father as she and her family tried to escape his rampage of terror. I bet this dispatcher didn't forget this case in a hurry, and neither will I. October 4th, 2015 was a normal night for most families. Kids were finishing up homework, parents were making meal plans, and doing the last load of laundry. For the Luke family, their lives were about to change forever. Daniel and Angela Luke met when they both studied at Ohio State University. They had been married for 18 years and had 2 daughters, 12-year-old Alexa and 9-year-old Addison. They lived in the suburbs of Canal, Winchester, Ohio. Daniel was the vice president of a bank, and Angela was an elementary school teacher. From the outside looking in, they seemed like a totally normal family. They lived in a nice house, the kids were polite, they all went to church on Sundays. But life wasn't perfect for Daniel and Angela. According to Alexa, her parents had been fighting for a long time and things had slowly been getting worse. It was a known fact among other family members, namely Daniel's brother David, that the two had been growing apart for a while, but to his knowledge, they weren't considering getting a divorce. At 8 p.m., 911 received a horrifying phone call from Alexa, begging for the police to come to her house as she was in the middle of trying to escape her father, along with her mom and sister. The 17-minute phone call, which went viral online after it was released to the public, is super hard to listen to, and you can really feel how terrifying that situation must have been. But somehow, the call handler managed to stay calm and collected throughout the whole thing, asking Alexa questions to keep her on the line. Without the skills of the dispatcher, there's no telling how the call might have actually turned out.
What's he doing?
He's hitting my mom and he's hitting her to the ground.
How old are you?
The call started inside the house as an altercation was taking place between Angela and Daniel. Alexa detailed to the dispatcher that her parents were in a huge fight and now her dad was really hurting her mom.
So he's physically hurting your mom?
He's hitting her to my bed and he's making marks on my mom.
In the background, you could clearly hear screaming and shouting from the parents, as well as both girls crying and begging their dad to leave Angela alone.
Get off my mother!
Who's at the house with you guys?
Just my sister, my dad and my mom. My dad's hitting my mom. I need to tidy it out.
Later, Angela told police that Daniel was hitting her and trying to stop her from leaving with the daughters to take them to safety. It's unclear what caused Daniel to act out so badly against his wife. However, it is known that he was drinking that night. Under the instructions of the dispatcher, Alexa managed to help her mom and sister escape from the house. As they ran out the front door, Daniel pushed Angela into a large potted plant next to the front door. She landed badly on her arm, so badly that Alexa told the dispatcher she thought it was broken. Daniel continued to harass his wife and daughters as they made a break for Angela's BMW. At one point, he even turned on Alexa. In an interview, Daniel's brother suggests a theory behind the outburst. He thinks Angela told Daniel she was going to take the kids and leave.
I don't want to live here anymore.
This theory isn't exactly supported by the fact that he tried to harm Alexa. Angela was pushed to the ground numerous times as she tried to get to her car, all of which Alexa described to the dispatcher in detail. Eventually, they all managed to get into the car, but that doesn't stop Daniel. According to reports, he was hanging onto the vehicle and forcing the doors to open. Both Alexa and Angela were heard screaming at him to get out of the car.
He's not letting us go.
Once they managed to get the doors closed, Alexa told her mom to drive fast, and the car sped up the family's long driveway.
Go fast, Mommy, go fast.
Seconds later, there was a horrible thump, and everyone started screaming. Still holding on to the car, as soon as Angela started speeding away, Daniel was caught by the wheels and dragged under the vehicle. Angela stopped driving straight away and got out of her car. Daniel was bleeding out on the driveway and totally still. In shock, Alexa shouted at the dispatcher that her father was dead and they needed help now.
Oh my God, he's dead! He's dead!
Angela took the girls to a neighbor's house as they waited for the police to arrive. Somehow, Daniel had survived the accident, but he had massive head injuries that he died in a few hours after being rushed to the hospital. Among the evidence collected from the house was Angela's car, 2 cell phones, and blood-soaked bed sheets from 2 of the bedrooms. Everything they found matched what Alexa narrated to the dispatcher and what Angela told the police in an interview. And then, to the shock of everyone involved, Angela was arrested and charged with 2 felonies: aggravated vehicle homicide and reckless homicide. This was awful news for their friends and family, and the case brought a lot of negative backlash against the police. An Ohio organization that supports people who have been harmed by their spouses was very critical of the police's response to Angela, literally trying to save her life and the lives of their daughters. Nancy Nylon, an advocate for the organization, said that this kind of behavior from police would discourage people from coming forward, as it tells victims that if they do, they may be the ones in trouble and not the person hurting them. To add insult to injury, Angela was suspended from her job without pay as the investigation was carried out, and that was estimated to take a minimum of 30 days. After the backlash the police received for arresting Angela, the Fairfield County prosecutor Greg Marks was forced to publish a press release. The Fairfield County prosecutor's office is reviewing the recent tragedy with the outstanding work and full cooperation of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office and the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. I have already spoken to her attorney, Mr. John Tyak, and I am personally working on this case. After that, they refused to give any more details on the investigation. The school that Angela worked at decided to reinstate her straight after hearing the 911 call, as it was clear to them she'd done nothing wrong in this scenario. And just a couple of days later, the charges against Angela were dropped and she was free to go. Once again, the phone call made by her daughter was cited as one of the reasons for this. Daniel's funeral was held just over a week after he died, and all of his family and friends attended, including Angela and their daughters. It's been stated numerous times that there is no evidence anything like that day had ever happened before. According to David, Daniel was super committed to his family, and if there was ever an issue in the house, he worked to resolve them peacefully. He said in an interview that he believes his brother must have just snapped, and the way he acted that night wasn't the Daniel he knew. Very little has been reported about this case since 2015, probably because the family are staying under the radar. I can imagine this isn't the kind of thing they want to keep bringing up in the media. Even though what her husband did was awful, living with what happened must be really hard for Angela. I'm glad that she didn't end up in prison for protecting herself, especially as it was initially thought she could spend at least 3 years incarcerated for Daniel's death. Today, Alexa will be coming up to adulthood, and I hope she and her sister are living their best lives. She totally did the right thing that day by calling the police, and if it wasn't for the details she was able to give, it's hard to tell what would have happened to Angela. Even if this was a one-time thing and he did just snap, everything Daniel did that night was inexcusable. Nobody should have to live with a person who responds to a situation that way, no matter what causes it or how angry they are. What do you guys think of this case? As always, I'm really excited to read your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below.